Hey everyone, it's FourEyes or Dave here. Welcome back to another video today. Once again talking about the Battlefield 2042 beta. I have been playing around with it for the last day since the early access for it released, and I've been having an absolute blast with the game. But a big issue I've been having, as well as many other people, I've been looking on Reddit and trying to get some info on this, is everything in regards to the mouse settings. Now, I covered this in my video I did yesterday on the best settings for Battlefield 2042, and I've actually had quite a lot of people coming back to me and saying that my settings for the mouse has made their game feel a lot better, which is awesome. But I was really going based on trial and error, because I was going in setting a lot of my scoped sensitivities and things like the uniform soldier aiming setting. I'd been setting all of them up really just to get it feeling as good as it could, but I wasn't able to get it to that one-to-one feeling that I wanted. Whereas now, having gone into some of the config files, I've actually figured out most of it, and it's really annoying because essentially the UI in the game is bugged. So if you guys remember from yesterday, I went in and I set all of my scoped sensitivities to 100 because I wanted them to be 100%. That would make sense, right? Well, actually that's wrong. Your scoped sensitivities, I think the default setting it puts it at, which it says 47 in game, that's actually one to one. That's 1-to-1, not 100% is 1-to-1. 47 in that box is 1-to-1 for whatever reason. And the same goes for quite a few of the other settings. So what I've ended up doing is saying, screw it, I'm not going to play around with what those settings are in there, and instead we're going to use the config files, okay? So let me jump into where these config files are saved. You have to go to your documents folder, and then Battlefield 2042 Open Beta, and then Settings. Then in here you'll have two files called ProfSave and ProfSave Profile. And then what I'd recommend you go do is you go get Notepad++. It's free to get online. Just search for it on Google, go download it, and then once you've got it downloaded, you should be able to right-click the ProfSave_profile file and edit it with Notepad+. Or Notepad++, I meant. And then you'll get this big document that opens up with all of your different kind of settings, like one here, option helicopter assist, and then with a value after it. And what we're doing is we're actually coming in here and setting the values in here at a much more granular level than you can do in the software. Now what I've done is I've pulled out all of the relevant settings that we're actually going to be using today into a separate file, and I'm going to go through each of these one by one and point out why they are important. Number one is the mouse raw input setting. So if we just do Control F and we search for mouse raw input, it's here. So this needs to be set to 1. There's a lot of people saying that this setting actually doesn't really do anything at the moment, but there's no reason to not have this set to 1, because it means that raw input basically means that there's no kind of post-processing done on the mouse. It's just whatever the sensor is picking up, it's a one-to-one thing that goes into the game before you start playing around with any sensitivities or anything like that. So make sure you've got that set to 1. The next one I want to point out is the future frame rendering setting. Now, I recommended in yesterday's video that you set this to on. This mostly came from the fact that in previous Battlefield games, having future frame rendering set on gave you a massive FPS boost, technically at the loss of a bit of latency, but the FPS boost was definitely needed. However, I and many others have actually found that setting the setting on or off really doesn't affect the FPS at all in the game, and actually for me setting this to off gives me the same FPS but a slight improvement definitely to the mouse latency and how the mouse feels in game. So setting this to off or to 0 in the config file is what I would recommend. If this does affect your FPS drastically, then you can turn this back on, which would mean setting it to 1, but for me turning it off has actually been a massive improvement to the aiming feel of the game. The next one is the mouse sensitivity and the mouse sensitivity vehicle. So let's just copy that and let's find that in the file. Mouse sensitivity. Now, this will be some sort of arbitrary value that matches up to a sensitivity that you can set in game. However, you've got 6 decimal places in here that you can actually set this to. So what I would recommend you do is find a mouse sensitivity converter. You can use mousesensitivity.com if you want to. Take a game that you've played a lot. For me, Valorant is probably the one where I've probably kind of honed in my aim the most. And I take my sensitivity from that, which is 0.54. I put it in there and it spits out a number which I can put in this config file, which for me is 0.022300. I put that in here, and that means I've got a one-to-one kind of base sensitivity from another game. I could do it the same. I could come from Warzone and take my sensitivity from there and put that in. It will all be the same, and it will equal to this. So that's definitely the first step you need to take in terms of actual mouse sensitivity for the game. Then for mouse sensitivity vehicle, which is just below it, this doesn't need to be anything kind of specific. I think this is definitely going to be personal preference, but it 100% needs to be higher than your mouse sensitivity normal, because for some reason the mouse sensitivity in a vehicle is way lower. It feels so sluggish in terms of looking around. So I've put mine to, it says 0.59, but I was trying out 0.6. I don't know why it's gone down a bit, maybe because I played around with something in game. But that's just feeling a lot nicer. I don't need to be able to like snap my aim and really aim well in a vehicle. It's more just for looking around and making sure I've got my surroundings and my bearings driving around the maps. So these are my two sensitivity settings, just at a base level. Match it up from another game, that's going to be your best bet. Next up, we have the, the vertical soldier mouse ratio. So yesterday I went in and these were both set at 50 in game, and I changed them to 100 because I wanted it to be 100% of the horizontal, so a 1-to-1 setting. That's not correct. The UI is broke, as I just said. So if we come into here and we search for this, I've now got this set. So we've got vertical soldier mouse ratio and vertical soldier mouse zoom ratio. These are both now set to 1. This equates to, in the UI of the menu of the game, 50. So it's what the game had set by default, but so many people are going to go in there and change that because we're PC players. We like to go into our settings, we like to play around with them, and we would have set that to 100, and then that would have thrown off your aim. Your vertical mouse sensitivity would end up being way higher than your horizontal, and it took me a little bit to realise that that was the case. And now I've come in here, set this to 1, gone back into the game, and it feels so much better. So set these both to 1 for sure. Next, we've got a big list of sensitivities, and these are all basically in a line. So we'll just copy this first one, the soldier zoom sensitivity. We'll copy out that one, and you have a big list of them here. So these, you want to make sure these are all set to 1, and I've got the smooth zoom input sensitivity set to 1. That's the zoom transition. I've got that turned on. But having all these set to 1 means that you get a 1-to-1 sensitivity when you scope in, rather than it changing every time you scope in. This, when you actually in the game, is 47 for some reason on the UI, which once again makes no sense. So for the previous setting, it was 50. For this setting, it's 47 for whatever reason. So me being what I thought was smart, going in and changing these all to 100%, made my zoom sensitivity crazy different from what it should have been. Instead, I've come into the config file, set all these to 1, and now we get that 1-to-1 sensitivity that I want. The last setting that I'm going to cover today is the uniform soldier aiming and the uniform vehicle aiming. So let's move to those for a second. Let's just copy that. There we go. So that's just down the page here. So you want to make sure both of these are on. Uniform soldier aiming and uniform vehicle aiming. Both of these you want to turn on. And then you're going to get a uniform soldier aiming coefficient and a uniform vehicle aiming coefficient. This is going to be a bit of personal preference. I would recommend one of 3 settings here. I'm just going to type them out. I'll type them out in this config file. So the 3 settings that you want to set for this are, and try out, are either 0, 1.33, which I think is the default, and 1.78. To explain what each of these are would take a long time in this video, so instead I'm going to link you to a video that was made by a guy called Silk, who is a Battlefield YouTuber. He uses this setting of 0 rather than the default of 1.33. I've been using 1.78, and this is mainly because it's what I was using in Warzone. Essentially, if you want to get really good at tracking at long distances, 0 is likely the best. If you just want to kind of go with what the game gives you, keep it to 1.33. And if you want something which feels the most 1-to-1 in terms of the 360-degree rotation, oops, smacked my mic there, then put it to 1.78. A lot of that's probably just going to go in one ear and out the other, so my advice would be try each of these out and see what these feel like. Essentially, if you put it at 0, it's going to feel a bit slower when you zoom in with those high value scopes, those high magnifications, whereas 1.78 will feel a bit more one-to-one, so it'll feel a bit more snappy. You might struggle a bit more with tracking because it might feel very fast. It really depends on how your muscle memory works, and it's just complete personal preference. So for me, I've got these both set to 1.78. After you've done all this, make sure you click save. I haven't changed anything, so I can't press save, but you can just do Control S, and then you can close this all down. If you want to make sure that this doesn't change and you don't accidentally mess with any settings in game, then you can come out of here, you can right click this file, go to properties, and you can tick read only. This way you don't accidentally change something in game and lose your sensitivity, and it will just mean that the game isn't overwriting anything. Anyway, that was just a quick video to cover through all those settings. I think it's important, especially before the kind of the open part of the beta comes out, where everyone's playing and everyone's like, I can't aim at all, and the settings make no sense. So if you've enjoyed this video, make sure you smash that like button down below and subscribe for more, hopefully, gameplay related videos on Battlefield now that I've sorted the sensitivity stuff out, both through the beta and when the game releases. Anyway, thanks very much for watching, guys. I'll catch you in my next one. Bye-bye.